and welcome to another video to teach you about the wonderful world of Latin. Today's video will teach you about the 5 different uses of the Latin word quam. This word is surprisingly varied and shows up in some interesting places, so this video will make sure you know all of them. 2 of them you already know because they're related to various pronouns, and the other 3 uses are a bit newer, and they will each be related to a different degree of an adjective. One for the positive degree, one for the comparative degree, and one for the superlative degree. So let's start with the ones for pronouns. And as you've probably guessed, they're the ones that relate to the last 2 pronouns that you learned, the relative pronoun and the interrogative pronoun. So they're both feminine accusative singular forms, one of the relative pronoun and one of the interrogative adjective. And the relative pronoun, these are like in the phrase, the boy who cried wolf. And so in this example, femina quam in foro heri vidisti in agris hodie currit. Quam is your relative pronoun, and it has the feminine singular antecedent femina. And you can recognize that it's a relative pronoun because there are 2 verbs, one in the main clause of the sentence and one in the subordinate clause started by quam. Quam in foro heri vidisti. And so overall you get your whole sentence. The woman whom you saw yesterday in the forum runs in the fields today. Quam can also be the interrogative adjective that is feminine accusative singular. So in this example, quam discipulam doces? Which female student do you teach? And we recognize that it's the interrogative adjective because it's asking a question, it's interrogating someone. So we have the question mark, and it's the adjective because it's modifying discipulam. Now, the other 3 uses of adjectives depend on the different degrees of the adjective. And this works with the adjectives that follow your normal patterns of comparisons with adjectives. So the positive ones where you're just describing a noun, the comparative where you're saying that A is more something than B and has that IOR, IUS in the nominative singular, or the superlative where A is most blank of all, with the issimus or the double ER emus or the double L emus in our superlative forms. Then it also works with our irregular comparisons of adjectives. So this list of 7 adjectives and, 6 adjectives and 1 preposition that has comparative and superlative forms. So all of these 3 uses of quam are adverbial, and they deal with the different degrees of adjectives. With the positive, it just means how, or how blank. And this one you've already actually seen, we just may not have spent too much time with it. So quam here is modifying the adjective. So quam acris as mens, we're modifying acris with quam, and so we can translate it like how sharp is the mind. Or quam celer est hic lupus, how fast is this wolf. Now both of these examples use the nominative case. Quam doesn't necessarily have to modify a nominative noun, a nominative adjective, but it does tend to involve an exclamation. So it does tend to go with the nominative case. It's just not always with one. The other 2 uses are totally new, since comparative and superlative degrees are new to you in this chapter. So let's look at the comparative degree. And remember the comparative degree in quam The comparative degree will have that longior, longius, that IOR, IUS, and the base will always have the IOR with the ending if it's not in the nominative case. So quam with the comparative degree adjective is essentially an alternative to the ablative of comparison, where we're saying A is more blank than B. Here, we actually have a word for than, quam. And you just need your comparative adjective. Usually it comes before quam. And then whatever the B is, that A is more blank than, that will be after the quam. So let's look at this with an example. So, amica celerior quam lupus fugit. Here, B is in the same case as A, so amica, that is celerior, is nominative, and lupus is also nominative. This is different than the ablative of comparison, where the lupus would be in the ablative, and there would not be quam. So, amica celerior lupo with the ablative of comparison. And both of these sentences can be translated the exact same way. The friend, swifter than the wolf, fled. It doesn't matter which way we translate it, translate it in the Latin, whether it has quam or the ablative of comparison. They both mean the friend, swifter than the wolf, fled. This works out in other cases than just the nominative. So with the ablative of comparison, remember that lupo is always going to be ablative because that's the thing we're comparing the amica to. However, with quam, the wolf and the friend stay the same case. So it would be amica celerior quam lupus, amicae celerioris quam lupi. The case will stay the same and we won't have the ablative of comparison. To look at another example, since as that chart shows, we can use comparative adjectives in other cases. Saturam acerbiorum quam mea carmina timui. The saturam and mea carmina are both accusative. So I feared the satire harsher than my poems, and the harsher is telling us more about the satire. This is exactly the same as the sentence on the right with the ablative of comparison. Saturam acerbiorum meis carminibus timui. I feared the satire harsher than my poems. This one's a little bit more complicated to remember how quam and the ablative of comparison work with comparative adjectives, but I'm confident that you're able to make sense of them as two alternative ways to say swifter than the wolf or harsher than my poems. The final use of quam is with the superlative degree adjective. And if you remember, the superlative degree has that issimus, issima, issimum, or erimus, erima, erimum ending, or limus, lima, limum ending, and the appropriate ones for each of the cases. Quam with the superlative degree adjective can be translated as blank as possible, or you can translate it as blank as possible, depending on what works better based on the sentence that you have. So to look at it in a few examples, we could have lupus quam celerimus se servat. Quam is modifying our celerimus, which modifies our lupus. The swiftest as possible wolf protects itself, presumably by running away from everything. Or we could have senatus de rebus quam gravissimis cogitabat, where quam's modifying our gravissimis, which is modifying our rebus. The Senate was thinking about as serious as possible matters. That quam gives us the as blank as possible. So here we're again using one word to add multiple ones or add in different things. It just depends on our degree of adjective. So if we look at all 5 uses of the word quam together, there's 2 that are related to pronouns, the relative pronoun and interrogative adjective. So here you need to think about, is it functioning in a relative clause? Do we have multiple verbs? Or is it asking a question? Is there a question mark? Or quam can be used with different adjectives. So is it right before a positive adjective for how fast is the wolf? Quam celerior est lupus. Or is it right after a comparative adjective for the swifter than the wolf? Celerior quam lupus. Or is it right before a superlative adjective? Lupus quam celerimus, say servat. You have to look at the rest of the words around the quam to use this word correctly. So make sure you're thinking about how the words work together to build the full sense of your translation of your Latin sentence. Thank you for watching this video. Have a good day.